Okay, separated those out. So Facebook is a great free marketing tool. In fact, I built my entire practice primarily from Facebook and then the later referrals from my clients. And I just love Facebook as a marketing tool. And I would encourage anybody here who's interested, get the documents, sign up, get yourself on the Facebook on the Bookkeep It tool, and then start immediately posting interesting, relevant, and useful content to the type of person that you want to attract, right? So who do you want to attract, right? Who's your target? And I believe your target is small biz and professionals that don't have employees and don't need more advanced bookkeeping services, right? So who are we thinking about? Who are we talking about when we say these? Give me an idea of a client that is a small business or professional, and they don't have employees, and they don't need a more advanced bookkeeping service. Who might that be? Here's what I call them: Chuck with a truck. It's kind of a
I've been trying to unmute. My pool guy is a good one.
there. Yep, he's a Chuck with a truck. The pool guy, right? Thank you for unmuting. Who was that?
Debbie.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks. Yeah, your pool guy's perfect, right? I have several pool guy clients. So Chuck with a truck, right? So what kind of guys are that? Pool guys, small contractors, handyman, fence builders, although some of those get kind of big. So, boy, I'm not typing very well, am I? CT. Okay, so that's kind of the first category, is this Chuck with a truck. But generally, you're going to provide the greatest value to people who need you the most. They're going to be less sophisticated around their financial issues. Great people. They like to work with their hands. They're really good at what they do. They make a pretty good living. They got raising kids and taking care of a family, all that kind of stuff. Landscapers. That's a big one there too. Landscapers, right? Uh, um, get that. So they're folks that are a little less sophisticated, savvy, right? Now, at the same time period, I don't want to offend anybody, because there's a lot of people that are professionals that they might be willing to do their own books, and if they took the time and trained themselves, they could, right? But they don't want to, right? Now, they need to still be self-employed professionals, and that's getting a smaller and smaller market. For example, a few years ago, I would have represented a lot of mortgage guys, but now they're all have to be by license standards. They have to be a W-2 employee to their broker or to their bank. Um, but real estate agents, a lot of real estate agents just don't want to mess with the hassle, and they're willing to pay a bookkeeper to take care of that. Um, you see people like dog washers and you know people who take care of pets, and it just kind of goes on and on and on. And part of it you want to ask yourself is, who do I want to serve, right? So I guess the other side is, too, it can't be too terribly simple, right? If somebody's making 10 or 20 grand a year and they've only got just a minimal number of expenses, um, that can be a problem. You don't There's just not enough work there to do. They're going to do it on their own, or just have less of a challenge. So you think about the type of person you're looking for, is the type of person that come January, February, and March, they're just beside themselves. They're having a heck of a time trying to get all those little pieces of paper, find their receipts, that most of them they didn't keep, figure out how to put, information together so they can get themselves down to their tax preparer and prepare their taxes, and they're just not happy about it. And so that's who we solve. That's who we serve, right? But what are we going to cost the Chuck and a truck? What is it really going to cost them? Anybody have any ideas?
About $50 a month, wouldn't it be?
Okay. Well, but at the end of the year, do they get any more? Thank you for, I appreciate you playing along. But at the end of the year, are they going to get more tax benefit because you did a better job of tracking all their expenses than they would have?
Well, you would hope so because you've identified more, tax deductions.
That's right. That's right. Because you're going to get them all. Right, by you working on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis with somebody, and that's a nice little trick in the way you bill. By you working with a monthly or quarterly basis with somebody, then they're going to remember more. They're going to, you're going to do the bulk of the stuff. You run it through the bookkeep software, but you're still going to have questions at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, and you're going to come back and say, "Hey, Marcia. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Maria. So what was that for, and what was that about?" And it helps them to expand their understanding, and it helps you to help them find more deductions. And they may have found them had they remembered to do them, but they're not remembering. They're waiting until January, February, and they can't remember what all those expenses were back in January, February, March. So I think it's appropriate to claim no cost tax favored bookkeeping. Ask me how. Right? No cost, tax favored.
Larry, I have a question. Are we supposed to be seeing your screen right now?
Yeah, you're not?
Nope.
Huh. Well, what's going on? Got the share screen on. Is that working?
There we go.
Huh. Sorry about the kids. All right, so we're down here at this no cost tax favored bookkeeping. Ask me how, right? And why is that a fair statement? Well, because it might cost them 50 or 75 bucks a month, or I don't know, 150 or 200 bucks a quarter, however you set this up. But because you're going to save them several $100s, let me just play with the math with you a little bit. So most self-employed people, they're going to have 15% self-employment tax. That's kind of the personal income tax for self-employed people. They got to pay their FIDA, SUCA, FUCA, BUCA, all that kind of stuff, right? And then they're going to have, 10 to 12% income tax, right? So what's the combined? It's 25%, right? Does that make sense? So you have self-employment tax, they got the income tax. Potential combined cost of a tax of 25%. So if we find them $1,000 in added deductions, how much do they save out of pocket? If we find them $1,000 in added deductions, how much do they save out of pocket if their tax bracket is 25%? The answer is 250 bucks, right? So it doesn't take very much money to add up to a $600, $800 annual bookkeeping fee. It just doesn't take that much. So how much would that be? Well, I can kind of pretend that I know how to do some math here, but I still need a calculator because I'm gonna have to do it in reverse. How much will it be? So we want to save someone 800 bucks, and we have 0.25 rate. And so I believe what I'm going to do, let's kind of play with that. I'm going to say plus that divided by that and see if I'm getting that correct. Nope, I'm got to do the other way around. So I go plus that divided by that. There we go, $3,200. So if we find them $3,200 in savings and they have a realized 25% tax bracket, then they're going to save $800. And I got to tell you, it doesn't take very much to find somebody $3,200 in expenses. If they're, because you figure most of these guys are making, 50,000 to 75,000, 50 to $75,000. $3,200 of that isn't very much. And so I don't think it's morally inappropriate to say, hey, let me show you how you can have no cost tax favored bookkeeping. Ask me how, right? Let me show you. Let's have a discussion around that. And I don't like the idea of and in fact, I don't even think it's legal to bill on a how much I've saved you basis. I'm more of a tax pro than a bookkeeping person, but in my world, I can't do that. And I presume that you guys can't either. But nevertheless, it's just not that hard to make yourself a value add to a person. And even if you're not, let's say that you've at least gained them in the conversation. Well, here's how we looked at Mr. Jones. If you're in a 25% tax bracket because you have 15% self-employment tax, and we assume 10% in income tax, that's a total of 25. Does that make sense, sir? Yes, it does. I get it. Okay. Well, my fee's going to be somewhere between, $600 and $800 a year. I've only got to find you an extra $3,200 in deductions to wipe out my entire cost. That's all I have to do. Oh, well, that makes sense. You probably do that too, wouldn't you? So, well, I'm pretty good at what I do. But more so, it's not like we're going to cheat or something. It's just that you're probably missing a lot of stuff because not taking the time. It's not what you do. It's not your focus. It's my focus. And let's say I'm short. You end up putting a few $100s in my pocket. Isn't it worth it to you? Right? Isn't it worth it to you to not have those hassles and headaches and frustrations at the end of the year? Keep working every single day instead of having all that, several days off where you're just pulling your head out trying to find receipts and deal with your tax person. I want to make sure everything's taken care of for you. You see how I'm sounding? So I'd like to get your feedback on that. What are your thoughts? Angeline, I haven't heard from you tonight. Can you comment about it? Debbie, go ahead.
Well, it makes sense to me. It kind of breaks it down short and simple. That's a small amount to save them to
Right.
cover your costs.
It doesn't have to. We don't have exactly. We don't have to hit any big numbers to make up that cost. And even if we don't, I mean, I wouldn't guarantee or swear, honor the Bible, that kind of stuff. I just say it's not a big number. If your tax bracket is 25%, it's not a big number. And you probably know in your gut that we're going to find you an extra, 4, 5, 8 grand. I mean, that's just kind of normal. But if we don't, then what happens is we've saved you some money and we save you an enormous amount of headaches and hassles, because that's really what people want us to do. They want to take the headache out of this thing and save some money. But it's mostly headache driven. This is that's why we can get the hourly rate we can get, is because the headaches are high. Now, I don't bill people on an hourly basis. I'm not saying, I'm going to work for $50 or $75 an hour. I just brought in a client last week, $100 an hour. It's going to be $100 an hour. I know it. I don't do that. I just tell them I'm going to solve their problem, and it's going to cost her $100 a month. She's fine. She's glad. She was paying $250 before, and she's glad to come with somebody who's more knowledgeable. She didn't feel like she was getting what she was looking for there. So it's not a matter of, it's the negotiation when you're marketing for bookkeeping services is not, I work for $15 an hour, or I work for $30 an hour, right? That's why we target a tax favored bookkeeping service, because once you get off that alley, once you get out of that lane, then your benefit return ratio to the client goes way down, and they start thinking about you as a $15 an hour staffer, right? and then you're just competing as, well, am I self-employed and working from home, or am I coming in community work and half time? You didn't want to be in that place. You want to be in the place of solving the problem for the small business person who has no systems in place. You set up the systems, you create the solutions, and you charge them on a monthly basis. Now, when you charge them on a monthly basis, that's fine, but I suggest that, especially with your smaller clients, in the first quarter or two, you need to communicate with them every month, right? But because you don't want them to forget things. But what you're going to see is that after about 6 months, you're not going to need to communicate with them every month. And they're going to be glad not to mess with it. You're going to have enough knowledge about who they are and what they do and what their keywords and phrases and such are, that you'll be able to communicate with them every 2 or 3 months and then have quarterly reports. So you're collecting 50, 75, $100 a month, but you're actually running the software once every 3 months. And because it works so fast, you end up with maybe 30 to 50 of your own entries that you have to pick up. So that's the second. That's the second point. Is, you know, initially you'll need to be with them frequently because they'll forget. But once you don't have to rely upon their memory and you've got their business model down, then you can stretch out the time period in which you have to be in contact with the client, and they're glad for that. They don't really want to be hassled by bookkeeping. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mary, I have a question.
Yeah, man.
You're talking about these people having to go through the receipts at the end of the year or whatever, but we wouldn't be going through actual physical receipts, right? Like our ideal client would have a specified company credit card and we would just go through their bank account, right?
That's right. That's right. If they've commingled their personal account and their bank account, you're going to have to go in and do like a rescue, and I just bill through the nose for that. It's a lot more time consuming and it's a lot more frustrating. And when they realize the cost is so high, then they'll either fire you, yay, which is fine because you're going to have plenty of clients, or they're going to be a little more disciplined about their spending habits, and they'll get a separate account that they've dedicated, at least in their mind, for their business activities. A lot of people don't need a separate, like, Charles Morrison Construction. A lot of people don't need accounts that are actually set up in the business name. They just need to have an account that's where the money goes in and that's where the money comes out, that's business related, and all their personal expenses are somewhere else. Is that helpful?
Thank you. Yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah. And that's part of your job, right? It's just helping them, set them up. Hey, this is what I really think we ought to be doing. Oh, gee, this looks like there's a lot of personal expenses commingled in here. Let's talk about that. Are they personal expenses, or are they business related expenses? Oh, I just shove them over there in the business hoping to get away with it. Well, let's try to keep them. We want to save them money, reduce hassles, and keep them out of trouble. Right. So sometimes we have to give them the, hey, let's get real kind of discussion, because I can tell you this, and I don't mean to be political about it one bit, but everything I'm reading about the Biden administration is they are loading up the IRS to go hunting. And people are going to need to be much more on spot. I think we're going to see a lot more audits and such. They're loading up, putting a lot of money and resources into collecting. Now, supposedly they're going to go after those, multi-millionaires who have been tax cheats and such, but that's never a useful thing for the IRS to do. They just end up fighting in the courts with attorneys for years. And then what they do is they turn their large mob on, the $75,000 contractors, because they can collect from them. So one of the things you want to be really, really clear about with your clients is, even though you're not requiring to see receipts, if they ever under audit, they're going to need to have receipts. So Jeff, Maria, Marta, just make sure that you when you expend something, put a little note on the back. What was this about? What was for? What was the job number? Something like that. Just pull your pin out, write on the back, stuff it in your wallet. And every few days, open your wallet and drop all those receipts in one box that's somewhere in your house or your office. Just put it in one box. Nothing else is in that box. A little cigar box, a boot box, I don't care, just a box, right? And never look at it again. And they're like, what? I don't ever want you to look at it again. If you get audited, we'll have to open it up again, but that's not the point. We're going to do all of your accounting off of your bank statements. So the only time you might have to look at that boot box is if I come back and say, I have no idea what this expense for, and you might have to, if you don't remember, you might have to go back to your boot box. But the other option is we can just take the expense off. It was $68 and neither one of us can figure out what it's for. it's probably cheaper just to take it off than it is to spend the time trying to dig through and figure it all out. So we're not receipt driven. We are accounting driven off of their electronic downloads from their bank statements. And we just want to remind our clients to make sure that they can, can defend their deductions, and they've got a pack full of receipts in a box someplace. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Larry, when you review their bank statements, can you see scans of their checks?
In some bank accounts will give you access to see scans of their checks. It depends on the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them done. We rebuilt a client's bank account last year, and they had like 2-year-old, and they couldn't remember any of their checks, and we went through and pulled them all, and it was quite a labor, but we got it all cleaned up, and we were using their pictures of their checks. Yep. Okay. So now we're back to talking about Facebook. If you're posting these, discussions, post interesting, relevant, and useful content, targeting who? Your truck and a truck, your pool guys, less savvy professionals, house cleaners. Great, right? I mean, the other thing to be careful about is that there are certain people who are just pure cash industry, and they're never going to be straight. They're always going to be making a whole lot more money in cash, and I wouldn't chase after the cash industry because they don't have the pain. They've solved the pain by not claiming any income, and so I just that wouldn't be an industry that I would chase after. But it's getting harder and harder to stay in that world because most people want to. Like, one of the things you'll see is tree trimmers. Tree trimmers are almost all cash. They show up and say, "Hey, I'll do those trees for $250. You want them taken care of?" And 4 hours later, they're gone, and they got $250 in cash in their pocket. They're not a good client. So anytime you're kind of thinking about clients, just don't be thinking about cash related income. We don't solve much of a problem for them, at least in their perspective. Okay, so when you're posting, you're looking at, there's all kinds of different Facebook groups. I like the buy sell trade groups because it's kind of commercial intent. The welcome to Awatuki groups, I don't like that as much because it doesn't match the feel of the group. I can do a little bit there because I'll post things that are tax advice. Like, I'll just, like, during tax season, I'll post something in a Awatuki friends group that says something like, "Hey, I know it's hard right now and I'd love to relieve your stress. If you have any questions about any tax issues, feel free to get in touch with me or post it here, and I'll try to," I think I say I'll post it here and I'll try to give you an answer within a day, get back to you. And that works really well if you can kind of do an advice kind of thing, right? And I'd be glad to help in that marketing function as well. But otherwise, the garage sales and buy sell trade groups and things like that, they're more commercially oriented, and you don't have any pigeons for sale today, but what you do have is a way to help people reduce their costs and live their life better. And so don't post too fast. Facebook has got a lot of computer power in play, and if they see you posting at a rate of like 30 seconds per post, pretty soon they're going to flag you. You do not want to go to Facebook jail. Facebook's going to be a really important partner for you. So post slowly, even if you're doing a copy and paste. You know what I mean? I can just highlight this where I highlight and Control C and then Control V. Well, if I do that, then that's going to tell Facebook that I'm not a typical user. And so, I'd keep 2 minutes apart. I'd be inclined to type some of the words on the page. You can paste some of it, but I'd still want to hand type some of it so they can see some hand typing going on. Don't post the same content more than five per day. And so if you're going to post 25 quote ads, then make sure you got 5 different versions. And even the backlinks or that kind of stuff. Even when I do my phone number, so my phone number is 480-993-5513. I don't want that coming up like that over and over and over. So I'm also going to have 480-993-5513, and that's probably too much. I probably could put a letter I in there. You see that? That's not 480-993. That's 48 letter 0-993-55L3. And so that's going to be helpful for you. And then don't post more than 25-day to your total groups because that'll also be seen as kind of spammy and get you kind of in trouble with Facebook. So what I wanted to cover today was the use agreement, and I wanted to cover just thinking about getting you guys moving on some sample ads on Facebook. And how many of you are here just to do your own books, and how many are here to build a practice? Debbie, what are you into?
Considering a practice,
Okay.
I've got a few people in mind.
Okay, and Angeline, are you available to answer? What is your plan? I don't know if she's here. And Sydney, what's your plan?
I'm hoping to build a practice.
Okay, who was that?
That was Sydney.
Okay, hi Sydney. All right, so so I'm not boring you by talking about some marketing activities and things like that. We've got a couple more minutes if you want to use it. What questions would you have that would help you to feel more comfortable moving on to Facebook and ask, soliciting some input?
So Larry, if somebody, sees an ad, they're interested in my services, but they do have, say, 1 or 2 employees, do I just move on from them and say I'm not a good fit, or what do I do in that situation?
Not necessarily. It's the question is who, 1 or 2 you're probably in shooting range, but maybe not. So with 1 or 2 employees, they're probably using a payroll center, and they still don't have an accountant. But if one of their employees is a bookkeeper, an accounting, or an admin type person, you just need to dig a little bit and find out whether you're going to solve. Look, what we want to do is solve problems for people. If they're already solving their own problem, then hallelujah, move on. So I'm fine. I still work with people that have 2, 3, 5 employees, but my closing ratio is lower. But if I got them on the hook, I'm still going to try to get them as a client.
Thank you.
Good question. What else? Let me tell you this. When I was in my 20s, I grew up, I'll just tell you a story and then we'll finish up. I grew up, my mother was a real estate flipper. She would buy repo real estate in Oregon, and we would move into the ugliest house in the neighborhood, and then we'd spend the next 6 months when my dad was off work, and me and my mom, we'd fix up the house. And as soon as it was looking just cherry and pretty and shiny, and the lawn is all perfectly manicured, it was sold, and we moved back into another ugly house. So I grew up in the ugliest houses in 15 different neighborhoods, and so I had a pretty good real estate background, and at 24 years old, I wanted to start doing real estate deals myself. And I went to a group of people that I knew that they were savvy. They owned some apartments and such. I'd met them before, and they knew a little bit about me, but not much. And I just said, look, I'd like to earn your trust. And they're like, okay, what do you got in mind? And I said, I want to put together a couple of real estate deals for you. And I'll manage them and run them for no cost, completely free. And no further responsibility. Just let me manage and run it. And if you have any concerns, you're in charge, right? I put them completely and then I brought them like 6 or 8 deals and said, are there any of these that meet your criteria? And they're like, well, I kind of like that one. I kind of like that one. And then I brought them the paperwork and said, do you like the way this looks? And yeah, okay, that's okay. And then I said, okay, well, we need to make an offer. And can we do this offer? Yeah, okay. And then I brought them to escrow and, and I put their name on it wasn't mine. It was everything for them, right? And it took me a few months to get, maybe 6 months, 8 months to get through those deals. And they made good money. They made, thousands and thousands. It was really good money. It was back in the 90s, so it was a lot lower real estate market than we are now. But these were deals where like you'd pick up the property for $55,000, you'd put 25 into it and sell it for 150. And that's a good deal in anybody's market, right? And it was after giving away deals that I ended up getting, that was the way I got myself into the market. That's how I got some training. That's how I got people to trust me. And then, deal number 3, I come along and say, Larry's getting paid this time, right? And they're like, oh, of course. And I made my career on that. I did hard money and all kinds of exotic deals. I mean, a lot of real estate transactions because of those deals that I would always give away early on. And I've just made the same decision in my life that that I'm gonna give away more value than I'm gonna keep. And so there's nothing wrong with doing somebody's books for 3 months for free. You got nothing else to do. I mean, I know you have lives, but you don't have a bunch of clients yet. So, if you want to make a storm, you got the software for free. Go get some clients, because the best use of this software to learn it is to be working it through your current clients. And go offer people, hey, I'm in training. You want to learn to trust me? I'll put it together. I got this great software. I got this tax pro who's really going to back me up. Let me do your books for a couple months and just see if it's a good fit. It's not going to be time consuming. And what a sweet way to just build your book, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's another way of going after building your book, and that is fixing people's last years or 2s or 3 years. I mean, I can't tell you, this time of year, I get tons of people call me up and said, Mr. Ferris, I kind of, you can hear them getting all squeamish, like, I haven't actually done my taxes in 16 years. You're like, okay, well, we're going to go back 10. And, I'm going to help them do 10 years worth of accounting. And I make them a deal because it's so repetitive and such. But, they're still walking away. I'm putting a lot of money in my pocket. So you may find that. You may find people that haven't filed for 2 or 3 years. They're really nervous about it. They need some help. And you're going to go back and, pull that data from, way, way previous years. Certainly charge them, right? But I'm just saying that don't be afraid to give away a few months, quote, tax prep, not tax, bookkeeping, just to bring people in the door, take the puppy home type stuff. So, you can certainly, I think it's moral to present yourself as a potential free service provider because of the benefit of your services. And I certainly always position myself in that way. I never want to charge my clients anything more than what I can. I mean, it happens, but I never intend to charge my clients more than what I'm saving them. And I think that's an appropriate approach. I'm just doing review. And then I think it's also appropriate for you to offer a couple of months of free services just to, make sure that everybody's getting along well. And that's important for you as well. Be ready to fire people. If they're not responsive and they're being a pain, move on. Move on. Okay, guys, so I posted the contract. Sydney, I need you to reissue yours. It came in really weird, please. I posted the contract. I think I emailed everybody. They've got your emails for, and I put it up on the Facebook site. So get that completed and back to me, and then I'll get you passcodes, that kind of stuff, and we'll start working off of live activity next week. Okay, I think we're out of time. It's nice to
Right.
talk to you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Larry. Bye.
Thanks, Larry.